What's up, guys? Welcome back to Babe and the Braids podcast. I'm Allison the Babe.
And I'm Isaac the Braids, who's usually braided, but I'm not right now. I was going to, but COVID-19 hit, and here we are.
Quarantine. I mean, what are we going to do during quarantine, guys?
I was telling her, I think it's super important to call it COVID-19 instead of Corona.
Why?
I don't know. I just feel like Corona is like the playful term, and Corona's like and COVID's like the, hey, this is like a serious pandemic.
I feel like our podcast isn't like a serious podcast where we need to use like technical COVID-19 terms.
Can we all agree that we've kind of got more serious about it though more recently?
Yeah, I mean, we're filming this and this is going to go up like in 3 days. So this is a pretty recent podcast, and it's like my level of worry is just increasing every single day. Yeah,
we'll put it this way. I think the global case count right now just hit 1 million. So the time
my anxiety was not ready for that.
So, boy, if you have anxiety, turn off the news. When you listen to this, if it's over 1 million, which it will be well over 1 million, it'll just be an interesting like stat check to go check and see what it's at. It's crazy to me because we kind of had our first person that, like, through the couple degrees of separation that had died.
Oh, you're saying like we know somebody who knows somebody that died?
Yeah, like we had a neighbor that was kind of like, he was asking people like, do you know somebody who has corona? Do you? Like kind of insinuating that it wasn't even real. And it's like we now know somebody who's died from it.
Okay. Whoa, we're getting a little bit morbid here. And the goal of our podcast isn't to be morbid. In fact, today we chose talking about the quarantine as a topic, more so like how it pertains to our relationship and how the quarantine has affected us and our arguments and just like how we are as a couple during all of this. But before we get started, I was listening to a few podcasts today, and all of those podcasts in the beginning of their intro, they were like, okay, we know there's something going on, but we're going to be happy and we're going to take your mind off of what's happening in the world. And like, I can totally respect that and I can get behind that, but I'm also not going to pretend like there isn't something scary going on. And I'm going to use this podcast to express my concerns and anxieties.
And legitimate emotions.
Exactly. I want to be real here on this podcast. And then next week we can pretend like everything is fine, even though it's not. But I'm here to get that all off my chest today.
I think like we're not therapists here. Like we don't know what we're talking about from a deep emotional standpoint.
Certified therapists, no.
But what I will say is I would like to think that like a huge part of overcoming anxiety or anything is kind of like understanding where you're at, right? So like I don't think there's a problem with saying, hey, like I'm low-key kind of scared to see what this looks like in a month. We literally, and I'm not trying to scare people, I'm just saying like April 12th was the previous, like, hey, this stay at home is going to be over. Now, who knows when it's going to be over? And it's like okay to be like,
it's okay to be intimidated by that. And we're not here to scare you or like push the facts or push the news. Like this is a very informative introduction to this podcast, but we're not here to scare you. We're just here to let you guys know that like you're not the only people struggling out there. Like we are struggling as well. We will all be okay. We're in this together. If any of you ever need to reach out to me and Isaac, feel free to do so on Instagram or on our email, babeandthebraidspodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
But we're all in this together and we're just trying to figure it out because there has never been something like this in history where everybody's quarantined. We're trying to like still get to go food. We're still trying to work. It's a weird time.
I mean, can we just stop? And that was great, Al. I really like that. And I think the best thing she said is that we're in this together. And I think that's the point of like kind of expressing your negative thoughts, because if everybody's positive or if there's people that are positive, somebody who's feeling super negative might look at that and be like, man, I'm different. But no, it's like, no, we're low-key all super sketched out. This is like super weird.
Right. Well, and like, I'm like I'm very intimidated by this, but I am choosing to look at the positives in my personal life. But that doesn't mean that sometimes I'm not like, I'm really scared.
Yeah. And I think the two of us have done a good job of trying to find positives. But I think the difficult part, and this is kind of what we wanted to talk about in the podcast, is from a relationship standpoint, you're like, we're in this apartment that's 1,300 square feet 24/7.
24/7, except for the one part of the day where Isaac goes and works out.
And definitely, I think initially it's kind of like, oh, whatever. But then like you start to realize we don't really have any other options but to just be here.
Yeah, like you just, like instead of going to Target and like shopping around just to do something, like you're sitting at home, and it just becomes difficult when you're in a relationship. And I mean, we've lived together for a while now, so it's not like brand new and now we're jumping into spending 24/7 with each other. But I would be lying if I said it didn't pose problems.
Yeah, it's also interesting because Allie and I, based on our work schedules, we spend a lot of time in the apartment together anyways, but there's just something different about having a shelter in place order. Like it makes it feel like we're kind of like, I don't even know that we're spending that much more or less time in the house together. It's just this shelter in place makes it feel like we have to be here.
Yeah, it's like
so it changes.
It's very confining and a little bit claustrophobic to feel like you can't go and do something. Like even though like we might not have anything change in our typical weekend, like we're still doing the same thing we usually would have done, except for now we can't go across the street and grab like chips and salsa and a margarita. And that, to me, is the biggest impact because we're social people.
Yeah.
And while we spend almost all of our time together, we usually invite like one or more people. And while we're together, it's just like we get to, I don't know, it's like refreshing.
Yeah, and I think we should just quickly talk about how some of the disagreements we've had. Not specifically, because that's kind of irrelevant, but it's like, in situations like this, when you're living with anybody, it doesn't even have to be somebody you're dating or married to. It's like literally if you're living with anybody for this much time, you're going to just argue about dumb stuff. And I think Allie has done the best job with it because she'll go like, we're in day whatever of quarantine. Like this is like a quarantine argument. This is not a relationship argument.
Yeah, Isaac and I were arguing about something stupid, and I was like, okay, I can't talk about this anymore. And then 5 minutes later, I came back and I was like, I mean, is this quarantine or is this quarantine?
The crazy thing is I was still mad. I'm like, boy, don't bring up quarantine as an excuse. But it's so true.
I was like, boy, you're not ready to be done. I'll come back in 5 more minutes.
And I think it's like, I think the rut that somebody could get into is labeling or trying to, take one dumb quarantine argument and putting it to their whole relationship. Like, just because we argue about what channel to watch, and that turns into this huge argument because we have nothing else to do.
I mean, Tiger King, how could you say no? I'm kidding.
How does it, we should talk about Tiger King, but
no,
it doesn't mean that our relationship is like ridiculous or like doomed. I think it's important for, especially guys to know, like, calm down.
Well, and it's very important. I mean, if you go into this quarantine in an unhealthy relationship, it's just going to get more and more unhealthy because, when you have one argument in quarantine, you both have to realize, like, this is just frustration that's been building up. You guys are together 24/7, and you guys both have to look at that argument and be like, okay, I probably said this wrong, but like, I'm just really on edge. And making excuses is not always the answer, but in this case, how could you not be frustrated when you're sitting in your apartment and have nothing else to do? It can just build up a lot of emotion, and there's only one other person in the apartment to take it out on.
It's just me. I'm just getting tore up in this little apartment. Tore up. No, but she's right. And I think, again, we're not therapists. This is just us kind of sharing what we've dealt with. I'd like to think that a lot of it has to do with communication. Like, I think the two of us have kind of taken a step forward in expressing our immediate emotions. Like, and sometimes that can cause an argument, but a lot of times it's almost more beneficial for me to go, No, I'm actually super annoyed right now. When you did that, that was actually like very, very annoying.
I mean, communication is the base. It's like the foundation for any relationship. And especially when you throw something very complicated like quarantine into your relationship,
Good old
you really need to be stable in communication. And maybe you and your boyfriend or your significant other aren't stable like in the communication aspect of your relationship. Take this time to like start figuring it out. Like, this sounds cheesy, but like look up blog posts, like listen to other podcasts and like
listen to Babe and the Braids.
No, but like find a way to talk to your partner without, I mean, whenever I say I feel blah, blah, blah to Isaac, sometimes he can get defensive. And
super defensive.
It's like my feelings, you shouldn't have to defend yourself because I'm feeling a certain way. Like, let's figure this out together. Teamwork.
And let's just give another solution. Find ways to get out of the house and be separated. I'm dead serious.
Here's a solution.
You
Leave.
can't be in a crib with anything forever. You know what I mean? Like, there's ways to do it. For instance, for me, I go work out. She knows I'll work out for 3 hours right now because my thing is there's no sense of urgency, right? Like, we're in this indefinitely. And I just think it's important to get as much of your, space as you can get when you're attached to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the way I leave the home is working out. And even if I'm not leaving the house and interacting with other people, because, I mean, I would not do that. I mean, not trying to get COVID-19.
Here we go.
But even leaving the house and putting on my headphones, listening to music, and going for a few mile run, it's so refreshing. And you're allowed to talk to yourself in your own head and not have to worry about like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. Like, oh, am I annoying this person? Like, what? No, it's just you, yourself, and the path you're running on. And it's really relaxing.
The AirPods. No, but seriously, I think that's been big for us is just separating.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting because Isaac and I are very different when it comes to being with one another, as in I love being alone. I thrive being alone. And like when I lived in my studio apartment, I could not have a friend over for 2 weeks and I would be completely fine.
You did used to do that. You just vibe.
Yeah, I mean, I love being alone, and that's just who I am. So like when Isaac goes and works out, I don't even I don't even think about texting him or calling him. I mean, this is only pertaining to the pandemic,
don't think about
and like
texting or I hate this dude. I'm like, oh my god.
This is only like pertaining to the quarantine, but I just love being alone. So it's really difficult when you're forced to be in the same apartment, because when Isaac's in the apartment and I'm trying to be productive, I feel like I can't like really be productive to my fullest ability because he's here, and that's not his fault. That's
yeah, it is. Listen,
is it your fault?
We can lie to the folks. I'm a lot to deal with. If you're stuck in the crib with me, you're going to be like, does this dude have a volume switch? It just kind of cuts him off for a second because I need to
He doesn't.
The amount of stuff that I come to her and just talk about randomly, now I've done better with it. I'm at the point now where I'm like, do you care to hear about this right now? Because I can stop.
But again, if you come to me and you're like, hey, can I talk to you about this?
And
I say no, he needs to realize, like, don't take offense to that. I'm just I'm like in my own head. I'm working on something in me. I don't want to hear about it now, but it's not snapping and being like, no, like I'm busy. Can't you see? It's like, oh, I'm like really in the middle of like editing this video. How about we talk about it tonight over dinner?
Yeah. And I think
communication.
Yeah, no doubt. But I think another thing to discuss is like how difficult it is living 100% of the time with somebody and not being able to have like special time.
Yeah,
because we have
really difficult.
The two, I mean, we're just sitting here breaking down the relationship in COVID-19.
COVID-19.
Oh, I got to get me some COVID-19. Oh hey, COVID-19. No, but I'm joking. But
corn on the COVID-19.
Corn on the COVID-19.
Okay.
I'm from Georgia.
We're also not trying to make light of like people losing their lives. We're just trying to make light of a heavy situation.
No,
just so you guys know.
And we take it very seriously. Like the precautions we've been taking have been very serious. But it's been very difficult for our relationship because we haven't had, like, date nights are out the window.
Gone. Zippity
out
doo-dah.
the window. We don't, I mean, I'm like, the thought of going out to a nice dinner sounds so, like, I would pay so much money to be able to go out to a nice, normal dinner.
I don't know that I'd be willing to pay a lot of money.
Like
but
a date night. Like we, and she mentioned it, our relationship, like, we kind of thrived off of, like, the casual date night. Like, we were big on the casual date night because we love eating out. We love having a couple drinks and just relaxing. We love chips and salsa. We love we love not having to worry about.
We love chips and salsa. Let me know if you guys want some chips and salsa merch.
And we love it. So we thrive on that. And so we went from 100 to 0. Yeah. And it's been very tough.
Lo siento. My alarm went off. Go ahead.
That's the chips and salsa alarm. But it's the point is, like, and we haven't done it, but it's kind of an open forum, even though there's people not here. But how do we deal with the situation moving forward where you and I can have alone time, but we're in the midst of COVID-19?
To be honest, when it comes to, like, a date night, the reason you look forward, or at least the reason I look forward to a date night so much, is because usually we schedule date nights when you and I are both really busy. So, like, you might be at work all week, I might be on an install that's running really long, and you're like, oh, like, let's go on a date and just, like, relax. And I'm like, okay, perfect. So then in my head, I'm like, oh, like, we're going on a date. I'm so excited. I'm going to get ready, put on a cute outfit, do my hair, maybe even put on some false eyelashes, like, make myself feel really good.
Talk to him.
And, like, put on a cute outfit that makes me feel confident, and then go on a date where I can sit down, relax, have a drink, eat some good food, and, like, have good stimulating conversation. And the problem is, like, Isaac and I have ran out of current things to talk about. Like, we are finding the smallest drama on, like, TV or like random, like, internet feuds, and we're just, like, talking about it nonstop. So if we were to have a small little date in our apartment, I'm worried that we're not going to be able to talk about it a lot. Like,
yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's just the reality of being stuck in quarantine. That's actually so funny that you bring that up because we take any drama. When I tell you anything, Allie knows exactly what I'm talking about right now. We have specific drama, but we take anything and we sprint with it because there's just
because we're
nothing.
So bored, and we're like, instead of reality TV, here's something we can talk about.
And then what do we do when Tiger King's over? We talked about Tiger King all. I'll just tell you guys.
Now we have to rewatch it in Spanish. Maybe it'll make it more interesting.
People might think this is funny. We literally went from, like, okay, COVID-19 started. That started. So then all our, like, conversations were about Corona.
And it was,
and the case count and, like, all this
which
stuff.
Which is horrible, but, like, we found it very, like, exciting and stimulating conversation to, like, hype up the fact stressful. That Corona was happening.
We had the news on 24/7.
I mean, yes.
We had Trump on 24/7.
I woke up at 6 a.m. and I was like, oh my God, I gotta go watch the news. Like, girl, you don't watch the news. Who are you?
Another thing that we did initially, or I would wake up every day at 6 o'clock and watch the markets, stock markets. The listeners probably don't care about that, but it was ridiculous because they were plummeting. But so that's how it started. Then it smooth little transition into Tiger King. And so then we had something to talk about with Tiger King. We're in this weird place now where there's literally nothing to talk about. I think it's also a smooth transition into the routine that we've tried to create. But we have, like, nothing to talk about. This little podcast right here is probably the highlight of our day right now.
Okay, we are just, like, going off about the problems we're having. I think we also need to, like, apply this and tell these people, like, what we're doing to fix it.
So I think. Oh, talk to him, Big Al. Talk to him.
I can already hear the comments. Allie, shut up and stop interrupting him. Okay, we get it, Carol.
Yes. I mean,
Carol killed her husband. No, but like in the example, like, I like being productive alone. I need to start telling Isaac how I feel and like in the nicest way possible. Like, hey babe, this is nothing like towards you. I just work really well alone. So I'm going to go outside on the patio on our new picnic table that we just got. And I'm going to sit out there for the next 2 or 3 hours and I'm just going to work at some stuff. Like, let me know if you need anything, but like, I really just want to focus and be in my own head. And like that's okay.
I think it's almost like a time to have difficult, like, boy, get out the way conversations in this.
Boy, get out the way conversation.
Because she can be like, boy, I need you to get out the way. And it's like, it doesn't matter as much because it's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. We're literally stuck in here together. And I think we could do a better job of doing it. But I do want to talk about the routine. I think one thing Allie and I have done an unreal job of doing is, like, we get up at the same time every day.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing for us in this whole scenario is maintaining a routine. And honestly, if you're struggling right now, I highly recommend you at least try and get like a brief routine down, like write it out. Even if it just means like waking up the same time every day, working out in the day, and then going to sleep at the same time. Because for us, waking up every day, it makes us feel like I have a purpose. Like it makes me feel like I'm accountable to something.
Yeah, and I think what it does more than anything is it doesn't cause us to wait on this to end. Like I'm telling you right now, I already said it. I cannot wait to go to Ola across the street.
Now you're exposing where we are.
I'm going to re-say it.
No, I'm leaving it in.
Okay. Boy, I can't wait to go to Ola. It's about to be fire. But I cannot wait to go there and do that. But we're in this, and this could be however long. And I think we've created a routine that's somewhat normal enough that we're not just sitting waiting on this to be over. I like to call it the new normal. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an important part of what everybody should do.
And I don't know if this is just me. I mean, I feel like I might be like a rare person to think this. Like, let me know if you guys can relate. But I actually kind of like my routine how it is right now. And that's a good thing because I'm stuck in it. But I see this opportunity, like us having to stay here, as an opportunity for me to grow in myself and start doing things that I always put off and things I'm the biggest procrastinator ever. And I make
I will second that.
I make so many excuses for myself. Like if I know I have a video to edit, I'll just make excuses like, oh, like right after I do this. Oh, like I'm so tired. Like, oh, I'm just going to do it tomorrow morning. And I keep putting it off.
It's adorable.
And now I have nothing as an excuse. So now it's like, okay, actually the only thing standing in between you and something you want to accomplish is yourself, which is very like, that's like has nothing to do with the relationship really. But
I feel like there's nothing wrong though. Like we're there. Okay, we're 2 weeks into the quarantine, and this is where we're at. I don't think there's anything wrong with having the healthy period of time, though, where you're like, I'm low-key going to sleep in every day. Like, I'm low-key about to just relax. And I think it can serve as a reset. It gets more complicated if you have kids, and if you're, like, not working, and you not working is causing you to be financially stressed. So we don't want to discount that because I think that is a reality. But
which I'm going to say, like, disclaimer, we are very lucky and very blessed to live the life, like, to have the means we do. I mean, I'm continuing to work, so I'm very blessed that my job has not shut down. And I know there are people out there that are really struggling right now because of money and worrying about, like, where their next paycheck is coming from. So I don't want to take, like, I'm not trying to discount those people. Like, obviously, they have it really bad, and it's going to be hard to wake up every day like really motivated if you're not knowing how you're going to pay rent. So I just wanted to say that, like, I'm not trying to take away from that at all.
Allie's adorable because Allie will, like, if she wouldn't have said that, she would have been genuinely, like, she would have been in bed tonight. Like, I just feel like people are going to be like, feel like we were offending them. Like we didn't want to.
Well,
it's
all
just
I care
funny.
about for this podcast is I just don't want people to look at us and be like, well, that's easy for you to say. Your boyfriend plays in the NFL. Like, if you don't get a paycheck, he's going to pay for it. And there are going to be people that say that anyways.
Well, no, you just have to reference our previous podcast.
Our hater comment podcast.
Well, that and the How We Divide Money podcast.
Yeah.
Oh.
No,
but seriously.
No, but I really just want this podcast to help like relationships and other people. Okay, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is the point is literally that it's okay to have the lull period aside from the stress of life. Like, and let's say you do have stress of life.
It's okay to have a White Claw at night, guys.
Let's say that quarantine juice. Let's say you were a little unhappy in your profession or whatever. Like, it can serve as a healthy reset. For me, and I'm not going to go off on a tangent about this because Allie and I have already talked about it, but like with some of the things that I'm trying to do right now in the quarantine, like I've had the time to do some things, and that's a reset for me. You know, I have a See You on Sunday initiative, and like it's not going the way I want it to as far as getting it to people. It's a reset to rethink how I want to do it. And I think just from a mental standpoint, like I've had the time and the space to really evaluate like where my mental space is and how I view going into the next season. It's a reset.
Of life called getting engaged to Allie.
It's a, I'll tell y'all this. I told Allie straight up, you're not getting engaged in a quarantine.
I told him I don't want to get engaged in a quarantine.
The crazy thing about it is, and this is what's funny about our podcast. The crazy thing about this is that if you had any plans, any plans, let's just assume that you were going to propose or like anything.
Propose.
Boy, that goes out the window. Like, because quarantine has thrown such a crazy wrench in all plans because nothing is open. And I saw, what meme did we say about, wow, now I realize all I did was drink, go out to like.
Oh, it said, now I remember all I did was drink, go out to eat, and go to non-essential businesses.
Like, boy, what did I do? What did I do in the non-quarantine? But it's like, it is funny because it does put a lot of things on hold. But it's been a healthy reset. Like, I've gotten to know Allie 10 times better. We'll have kids that are dating and whatever, and we'll look back and laugh and be like, wow, we really were stuck in a... Tell our kids, you don't even understand. That coronavirus vaccine that you get every year, we literally lived through, like, when that happened.
Sorry, I'm still stuck on when we have kids.
Isn't it crazy, though, that could potentially happen, that we can look back with kids and be like, yeah, like,
well, that's the thing, though. Like, this is definitely going to go down in history, which is crazy to think because, like, growing up, like, history books seemed so lame until we got to the point where, like, baby boomers and, like, wow, like, all of these people are having sex. And that was, like, the only interesting thing. And now, like, when we tell our kids, like, yeah, we couldn't leave our house for months, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? You guys didn't go in your little bubble pod? It's going to be, like, in 40 years when science and technology is crazy. But
I mean, we'll wrap this up in a pretty bow because now we're just getting off on tangents.
No.
But it is just crazy to me. Like, it is crazy that is actually going to happen. I mean, there's been no other pandemic that we've experienced, period. Mm-hmm. I remember she came to me. We were laying in bed and kind of joking around. I think I was leaving somewhere the next day, and she was like, I think I was going to New York or something, and she was like, oh my gosh, this virus in China.
Dude, okay. Yeah, but
that was like
that's
3 months ago.
In January, I saw, okay, so I follow this, like...
I still don't think the video is real, though.
Which is insane to think. But I follow this, like, slaughterhouse survivors Instagram page for, like, dogs in China that you can adopt. And I saw this video, and it was like, coronavirus is real.
Wait, it hadn't been advertised yet?
What do you mean? Like,
when you saw it, it wasn't, like, in the mainstream media?
It briefly was. It was like, oh, there's like a new virus in China, and everyone was downplaying it. And then I saw all of these videos, which I'm not going to put on. I mean, on this YouTube video is already going to get demonetized because we said the word, which is completely fine. I don't really do this for money.
Said the word corona?
Yeah. Any video you have and you say the word corona or COVID or quarantine, they demonetize it.
That's actually smart.
But they just don't want to put fake news out there, which completely, like, it doesn't affect me. That's fine. I don't really care about the money anyways.
Oh, talk to him, Big Al. Yeah.
Oh my God, she's so privileged to not care about money.
No, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, she's so
No.
genuine. She does it for the fans.
No, I don't have fans. Well, I have a few real people out there, but no, it's so weird to think about that. I was like showing Isaac these crazy videos of these people falling over. Again, I'm not going to include it in the video because it's a little bit like
shut this
graphic.
fake video off.
And look at us now. Like, honestly, I think that was real.
Well, I'll say this. I'm not going to say I've been reckless at all. Like, we've been very wise with the way we interact with people. If he's been reckless, I'm going to be
having a conversation after this podcast, because if he's reckless,
we put the headphones down, fire off.
Yeah. No,
and then we film Quarantine Part 2.
If he's reckless, then it's going to affect me. This is such an interesting time for relationships because we're in it together. You made me lose my train of thought. Oh, no, what I was going to say is, hadn't been reckless by any means, but it's the news that is coming out. Like, the LA mayor said, don't leave your house without a mask. Like, that is terrifying. Now they're saying it's airborne. That is terrifying. And we're not trying to scare people, but we're just having a discussion. I'm not going to say the fact I was going to, but
what I'm saying is, I'm about to go in like hypersensitivity mode, where really the people that I come in contact with are people that I am truly like, we are in this together.
Well, let me just rephrase that, because people are probably going to be like, you're not supposed to come in contact with anybody. But for those of you
we're literally not. We're in it together.
No, but like, we go to the dog park and we stand 6 feet away from other people. And like, we need to do that because our dog needs exercise.
It is essential.
That is essential.
Well, in our defense, you have to realize, like, we were doing that as the reports were coming out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we were already, they're telling us to stand 6 feet apart, and we're like, well, we're already not. Mm-hmm. What do we?
And we're not stupid. Like, we do know, like, if that couple goes to the grocery store and comes back with corona, we could possibly get it at the dog park. Like, what?
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no. We're understanding, like, that process. Like, when I say we social distance, like, we are social distancing as much as possible. Like, we always wash Frankie when we get back to the apartment. Like, we're taking as drastic measures as we can while still being healthy. Like, we can't just not go on runs on like I'm not going to go on a run because of the coronavirus. Like, I still need to be healthy and myself. And like, I don't want to be paranoid to the part where like it stops me from living. I don't want to like stop going outside in our courtyard because other people are in the courtyard.
I would make an argument though. I would say we are in such
Isaac. I'm leaving that in.
I would make an argument that we are in such intense times that we do need to be radical. Mm-hmm. It is truly a situation where like you can't just be casual about it. The thing is, the death rate right now is high enough for it to be concerning. Not for everybody, but just for the general population. Based on what they're saying, everybody would pretty much know somebody that was like seriously affected by corona. And that it doesn't have to be like that. Like, we can curve or flatten the curve, like they say, if we take drastic measures.
Here's an unpopular opinion though. I am still going to work. And while the government states that my job is an essential service, I don't necessarily think that if we stopped and halted all of like my job, I'm like not trying to get fired here. Like, love my job. Don't fire me.
Well, everybody's in that situation.
No, but my thing is like, I don't necessarily think that if our company stopped, it would really affect lifestyles for other people. Like,
well, I'm gonna make the argument.
Well, it would affect the market. That's for sure.
It would affect the general productivity of our economy. Because, and we'll say this, and again, Allie and I are now ranting.
Well, no, but that's what our podcast is here to like inform people about like what we're thinking.
But
like, I don't like going to work during this, but I have to pay like my bills, so it's a difficult situation.
It is, and I think we're all in that situation. I am among the luckiest people because I'm a professional athlete. So like I do make good money and my season's not going on right now. Mm-hmm. But don't get it twisted. This thing could go to August because what I always say is we're only as safe as the last case. And that is terrifying for me in my job. Mm-hmm. And that's where I sympathize because it is terrifying. But okay, we're not going to rant. I'll say this. What is the conclusion? I would say the conclusion is like in your relationships and when you're stuck in quarantine, like have open conversations, and this is kind of your time to be reckless in your conversations because
whoa.
It is.
Don't be reckless.
No, how many times I've told her I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and say this. How many times have I said that where I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and say this because she's not going anywhere. Like we're in this thing. Let's have these difficult conversations.
It is crazy because when you're with somebody 24/7, your real self starts to come out and you have to tell the other person like blatantly like, hey, you keep doing this and like I'm okay with it every once in a while, but boy, you got to stop doing it every 5 seconds. I am like not trying to do that.
Wow, like, that's the first time I've heard that, folks.
No,
I'm joking.
No, okay. No. Like we are going to wrap up event like in a little bit, but I just want to say this. Like Isaac is the type of person that he like if he has a great idea, he can't stop thinking about it. He can't stop talking about it. He needs to like he needs to research it. He needs to write an article on it. He needs to post an article on New York Times. He needs to go talk to the president about it. Like
it's a
literally
blessing and a curse.
He goes all out with it. So like throughout this time, like he's had some ideas and it can come very consuming because I'm like, I'm really excited for you. And like, I love the fact that you're being productive with this time. And like, I want nothing but the best for you. Like, sounds like a cool idea, but
boy, get out my face.
But like, I'm literally in the middle.
Boy, back up.
I'm in the middle of doing something. So like, let's talk about it at a more appropriate time. And it's hard when you're in a relationship to be like, what do you mean an appropriate time? Like we're at home, like do that later. But it's like you have to learn to be a little bit selfish in these scenarios, and
you have to. You have to. I mean, I'll say this: I don't think I get super selfish though. I think she's in our relationship, and it's not a bad thing. I think it's more often than not that I feel like I'm a big compromiser for our relationship. Like I feel like there's times where I'll just be like, I'm wrong. Like let's just move on. It's true.
I don't believe that.
So it's okay to not be the one being selfish. Like the point is there's always got to be somebody to compromise. You compromise sometimes too. And there's been a lot of times.
You hear how pathetic that was. You compromise sometimes.
But I don't mind. I don't mind being the one who's like, if I compromise more, who cares? The point is I want us to be functional and not be like in a weird place.
I think because I am like my personality is me being independent. I think I
don't say independent. Say hella independent.
Because I'm hella independent. I don't think that's me being selfish. I think it's just me standing up for what I believe like is best for me in that moment.
Do y'all hear that? That is an independent answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most independent answer I've ever heard, but it's good. I always say this. I'm going to have a daughter one day. I know I will. We already have a name for her, and it's not gender neutral name Frankie. But
I honestly love the name Frankie for a girl, so I'm kind of sad because we can't name our daughter that now after our dog. Go ahead.
The point that I'm trying to make though is I hope that our daughter carries your same attitude. Mm-hmm. I hope our daughter's like super independent. So I don't hate on it. Sometimes it's very annoying when I'm trying to get something done and I'm like, I wish Allie would just like compromise, but it's not a big deal. You win some, you lose some. And as long as our relationship progresses and we can look up after the quarantine and feel better than we were coming into it, then who cares?
Yeah.
So,
and as a closing out,
talk to him, Big Al.
We know this is a difficult time and this can put a lot of strain on relationships, whether it be with your significant other, your family, your roommate, your friends. Like some people feel really alone because
they feel more isolated
because their friends aren't reaching out to them and then they're not talking to anybody and they're all alone in their apartment. So I wanted to make this podcast to show you that like we have experienced issues during this quarantine. I mean, they're not like relationship ending issues, but there are issues there and we are trying to work around them. Like you are not alone, and I never want anybody to feel like they're alone. So if you guys are ever feeling alone, do not hesitate to reach out on social media. Like I am not above that. Like some people are like, oh my God, like fans are like messaging me. Like I don't view you guys as fans.
No,
like we're all a family here. Like if any of you are struggling, feel free to reach out. I'm actually thinking about starting a Facebook group for Babe and the Braid podcast and like creating a little community of people who are in relationships that might be having issues that we don't necessarily.
Somebody can chime in and help.
Yeah, like if we don't address it here,
That's a
like
good idea.
because I follow another podcast and they have a great little Facebook group community and everybody just kind of like supports one another. And it can be really refreshing to have somebody else's perspective that doesn't know you personally. I think that can be a great
platform.
Yes.
Here's what I'll close off saying.
So I'm going to put that in the show notes. I'm going to start a Facebook group.
Big show notes. Here's what I'll say to close. One, I appreciate Al because she's a beast. They don't make them like Big Al.
That's kind of adorable.
Second thing I'll say is, and I always say this to people, don't get that arm away from me.
I just yawned and put my arm around him.
Get that. If she hadn't touched me the whole show, then all of a sudden I'll make one comment and she wants to throw that arm over here. Here's what I'll say. And I say it all the time. We're all human. We're all human.
Babe,
seriously.
That's what you're going to end the show on.
No, we are all human. The point is the emotions that we have, good or bad, annoyances, the realizations that our partners or whoever we're living with might be annoying sometimes, like those are human emotions and you shouldn't have to suppress those or hide those for any reason. But there is a healthy way to address them, but you don't have to suppress them.
Quote from a podcast I was listening to earlier, like it is healthy to talk about your feelings, even if they're not like positive feelings. If they're bad feelings, it's better to talk about them when you're feeling them than let everything build up because
they'll marinate.
A week after quarantine, they're going to be marinated.
Those boys will be marinated.
You're going to blow up and it's going to be a bad situation.
Allie says, she always goes, I can't control my, like, not I can't control, but like, you can't tell me my emotions are wrong.
Yeah.
She tells me that and I'm always like, that's low-key super true because again, we're human, and when you're in the moment, what you feel is like very like human.
That's it. Yeah, like when I get anxious in the car, like, boy, I am anxious, and I know that sounds stupid because you just stopped, and I just got anxious because of that. But like, you got to realize,
now you're giving specific examples.
Boy, let's talk about anxiety.
When I drive, she gets anxiety. All right, we're done here. All right, we're not gonna keep ranting. The point is, I appreciate you guys tuning in. This has actually been probably one of my favorite podcasts because we've just been super real and been like, we have nothing else to talk about except Tiger King and COVID-19.
COVID-19. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is like why I wanted to start a podcast in the first place, just to show that like on the outside you see a pretty girl.
And a good-looking man. Talk to him. A
good-looking guy, tall, muscular, NFL player. Like, she has a good job. On the outside, you see, like, some of you aren't into the interracial thing, but besides that, you see, like, a good relationship. But I want this podcast to show you guys that not everything is perfect, but even though it's not perfect, you work through it and you get to, like, the perfect place for you.
I love it. All right. Tune in. We're going to try to do these every week. Babe and the Braids podcast.
Join the Facebook group.
I'm the big beast Braids, and she's the beautiful babe. So just go ahead and join the Facebook group and keep tuning in. I'll talk to y'all later.
I wanted to say bye. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Allison's podcast. Isaac.
Are we serious right now?
All right. Bye, guys.